And now we are live.
Everybody run for the hills.
Now is your time to shine. There was a song involved?
I don't know, something about the hills.
Oh.
It's one of the harder ones.
Actually,
I was not making a rock band reference.
I was going to say, I think Fred is too young for this to be a rock star reference from like this.
I mean, rock band was definitely a thing when I was a kid. But
a kid?
Everybody's about Beat Saber now.
You should retire, Jeremy.
I've never even heard of whatever you just said.
VR.
Why is equals highlighted green?
Because we probably didn't override it on type reference before.
And we are now?
Mm-hmm.
So the implementation was overriding it with the reference.
Yeah, we diffed reference assemblies, right? So if it wasn't a reference assembly, then it wouldn't show up.
So we were missing the overriding of the reference.
Okay.
A lot of new overrides will show up if we've changed the override display logic. Or generation logic.
Probably. I've suppressed it pretty much in net standard so far as well because it's general is different, right? But should probably just merge them all.
Mm-hmm.
Type initialization exception allows you to pass a null type name?
Yes.
And it means the type that we couldn't initialize, we don't know.
Okay.
Or maybe you don't want to expose it. What do we do?
It just means that the type name field is then null, which makes it return empty.
Well, then type name, which makes it return empty. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the usual way we did it, right?
Probably they were just flexible enough so that you could pass a null full type name and inner exception.
Okay.
There's an internal constructor that creates it.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I would expect this to come from the runtime. Which might actually be the reason why it's nullable.
All right.
Yeah. Steven, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I wasn't sure whether this setup works.
Yep.
All right. So. So I haven't pulled in Santi's changes, so whatever he did, I would not see it here.
Santi, you haven't gone through and changed the tri-parses that or you did. Like the GUID tri-parse, you changed those already?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
they should be in my PR. I don't know if you.
I have not.
Oh no, because you just pulled the one that I shared with you a week ago, so that no, they shouldn't be there then. They are on my PR, but they are not the one that you're using.
I didn't look. Did you go back and change your PR with additional things we talked about earlier in the week, like the format strings and whatnot?
No, I'm waiting for Emo to share the notes.
Yeah, so
okay.
I was lazy so far. Like so yesterday I spent the time debugging the tool to actually get to a point where we can actually export this div. So what I will do is I will export the entire div and my basically nodes as an API review entry in the API reviews repo. Because otherwise there's no convenient place to put it, and I don't want to put it on your PR because that's impossible to look at in my opinion. Because it's implementation, right? It's
as soon as I get the notes, I'll fix it on the implementation and the reference.
Those parse methods, we are accepting Null. Did we talk about this last time? We're accepting a null format provider.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's always been the default. It indicates just use current culture generally.
Right, but you wouldn't just call the no
I think,
no provider
I
version.
think that no one calls that one with null.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
it's
we
from
also-
before we decided to use optional parameters was okay. So
I mean, I guess I don't know as though.
It's a pretty strong convention that you're able to pass null
Yeah.
to that.
Okay.
Like in a world where you basically do chaining of methods, basically the assumption is that the shorter one just call to the longer one. And like usually the problem before defaults were, let's say you want to pass in the fourth argument, but you don't bother about the other guys. You just should be able to get the same behavior as if you would have called the shorter one.
Alright.
And that's basically it. Yeah, I'm also not sure we would change this, even if we could today. It would be weird, but
right, because there's no way to even specify give me the default other than null.
yeah, null just sucks for cases where you don't have, like, if null itself would be meaningful as a value, right? That's the whole problem of sentinels. But fortunately, it doesn't pull up too much. So I forgot, like, is the format string always expected to be nullable, or just in some cases?
I think it's always because we say it's the default.
Yeah, for formatting, for try format, toString format can be empty or null. But I think what we were saying last time is for parsing, with like parse exact, we expect a non-null format,
Yeah.
even if the implementation allows it.
Yeah, I mean, if we have other places where we do accept null to mean the default, maybe we should just do it there as well. It feels a bit, it just, I don't know, format always strikes me as something you pass in, but the argument here for toString with the overload with and without makes sense. I think the try parse one just didn't have an overload without, that's why I think it was brought up. So maybe we should just change our stance on that one. And just add a node on the other hand.
Date time stack does throw.
So what?
Date time parse stack does throw.
Yeah, so that's I think the other problem is
Parse exact does, but try parse exact does not.
funny that the one that says exact is more forgiving. But
The other one is
oh fuck me, no, sorry. I have to review everything. I was like, there's no diffs, that's fast. No, that's not how this works. So I assume the behavior of URIs when things are not present, that means it's just empty.
I believe that's the case. One sec.
I guess it does make sense because it does avoid having to check for these fuckers all the time. Because it's easy to not ref them. Yeah, especially because comparisons are now a bitch, right? Because you would have to say, well, if it's null or empty, right, then it's the same.
For also on the class just before this, for unhandled exception event args, looks like exception was non-nullable, but the implementation accepts null because it just assigns it out to the field with no checks.
For what?
For exception there, we just assign it to the field with no checks.
So you could actually potentially get null out of exception object, the getter.
Yep.
Right, but only if you passed in a null to the constructor.
Right, but we don't check. We don't throw if it is null, so therefore null is a valid state.
No, sure, but, well, yeah, okay, so there's a few things. One, if we were to decide to make one of these question mark, we would make the other one question mark. But we also trust that if you're respecting the nullable annotations, you're respecting them everywhere. So in order to get a null into this, you would have had to have banged it away.
But the person reading the property and the person throwing the exception aren't necessarily anywhere related.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
It doesn't
might
matter.
you might have
It
a
doesn't matter though.
you might have a non-nullable aware caller.
It doesn't matter if you're, you know, that would be akin to saying like I'm a producer of something and I'm violating type safety, and then I'm giving it to you and I'm expecting type safety to work.
Well, all I'm saying is I would expect us to either have a check to not allow null here, and therefore we say if exception is null, throw argument null exception, or we would annotate.
Well, we're not going to add that because that's a big breaking change.
Right. Then shouldn't this be nullable because there may be existing people passing it in?
It depends. It's a question of intent. Do we believe that this should accept nulls? If it should, then we make a question mark and we make exception object question mark. If we believe the intent is, well, maybe we wanted to have, you know, we should have had an exception there, but we don't, so, and no one should be passing null in here anyway because it's about an unhandled exception and therefore you should always have an exception. And so the intent is we don't take nulls.
But what if the intent is the user wants to say, I've got an unhandled exception, but they don't want to propagate it up because it might expose information?
Who does that? Like, where is that done? It's a question. That's why I say it's a question of intent. If you believe that that's a valid scenario, then we put question marks on both of them, and the 99.999% case doesn't work without warnings. But we can do that. We can put a question mark on both.
Because I guess there's not even a guarantee that this is an exception type, right? It could be a string or anything else. Or if you were in C++ CLI and you threw a string.
That's why it's typed as object instead
Right.
of exception.
I don't think that's possible anymore. I think we wrap them always in what's this thing called. There was an exception.
That's
for
a
that.
per assembly thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure we honor this anymore. I was under the impression that we at some point fixed it and we don't honor that.
But is that a requirement of the CLR or an implementation detail of core CLR?
How is that relevant to the nullable question?
It isn't.
Well, I mean, it could be completely valid for any runtime to then say, like, for example, if this is a non-recognized, we set null, or...
Sure.
It seems odd that we're saying, without any checks or anything else, and with all the inconsistencies between nullable aware and non-nullable aware APIs, that this one in particular, we don't have any checks or anything else.
It's not just this one in particular. There are a bunch of places where we decided that even though there are no checks in the implementation, we're stating the intent is that we don't accept null. We can change those. But at a lot of these places, we did it because it was sort of a pass-through thing. It was passed to the constructor, but the more common case is accessing the property. And for that 99.9% case, or even 100% case, except for these really weird corner cases, you're never going to get null out of this thing because null is never going to be passed in. And so we would warn if you were passing null in.
Who's accepting this guy? Is that the is that app domain?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only producer of this today is app domain.
Yeah. So I mean, this goes similar to the struct discussion, right? You can always construct a struct with null fields, but if the only producer is logically the framework and we never put in null, I would say, you know what? Why would we punish everybody? Um, that just seems the wrong direction, right? Like, I don't believe you can throw null in C++, right? You have to have a value, right? A value pointer.
I'm not sure.
I'd say how C++ could prevent you unless they make it a constant value. But
If we want to change this, there are a bunch of places we should go and change where we did a similar thing as well, like a bunch of attributes. That are just passed through from the the constructor to the property, and don't check anything, and don't throw because, well, they're not supposed to throw. And so we have a bunch of those where we say, well, in reality, you really shouldn't be passing null here. And in fact, if you use them as attributes, often for many of them, the C# compiler will say, you have to pass in a blah here. Like they're hard-coded knowledge into the C# compiler. So we made those non-nullable. But
And C++ does allow you to throw null pointer, and it terminates after throwing an instance of decal type null pointer.
It allows to throw, but it kills itself when it does?
Yeah, it terminates and aborts because it's an uncaught exception.
and it's kind of like what happens when you throw null from a C# program. But,
Well, that gets converted into a null ref exception.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably expect that to happen on our side too. If you throw null from managed C++, I think that's like the only sensible behavior. But
That's
yeah,
why
I honestly, like, I would say let's make it non-null and see what happens. Like, I mean, I guarantee you nobody ever guards for this thing being null.
Okay.
Like that. So de facto, you probably already die when you have that.
Seems fine to me.
Yeah, all right, serialization at URI. I think we went almost halfway. My favorite type.
Yeah.
I believe you.
In fact,
I don't
it's
see
so
the
much
word
more
null
favorite.
anywhere in code, so I do believe that I'll make it component part. Returning non-null strings. But it's URI. Not the definitive statement that
Why try create always out non-null?
That's a good question, actually.
that's
seems
wrong.
fishy, yeah.
That should be a question mark with not null when true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we just say if URI string is null, then the result is null.
Oh, see, I thought the pattern is the other way around. But yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It depends on whether, in general, the pattern is if it's a generic, then it's going to be maybe null when false. And if it's a non-generic, it's likely going to be not null when true. The problem with generics is we don't know, we generally don't know whether, even if it's you may have given us a nullable generic, and so we might successfully get a null value.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, but I mean, it's a bit sad that we don't have the same pattern, right? We could decide that try creators follows the same pattern. We would just say it's out URI, but then we say maybe null when false, right?
But this is better. It gets to be not null when true. That's an even better guarantee.
will never return true and produce.
Why is it a better guarantee?
It seems like it's the same.
Because
thing.
it means that, no, it means that so let's say I have if try create, and then I do something if I succeeded. I know that result is non-null. If this was the generic case and I had maybe null when false, I'm going to get a warning when I try and use the out in that success case, because
Right,
I don't know whether I was given null or not.
In the case of a constrained generic or an actual concrete class type like this, well then maybe null when false means that it's URI question when it's false and it's URI bang when it's true, right?
No. No, it doesn't mean...
It means it is what it is when it's true, right? It doesn't change anything when it's true, which is, so it is what it is, which is URI bang.
Sure.
It's the same pattern. You could use the same pattern for both and they mean the same thing.
That's what I'm
It's
saying. It
just-
seems
it's
more
just-
consistent to just special case the false cap because that's like also practically speaking, that's kind of what it is.
Well,
right?
no. Hold on a sec. You can't. I don't think the signature makes a whole lot of sense because the caller needs to be able to pass. Like generally, you'll be passing a URI question mark here because it has to allow for the fact that it could be null.
Oh, you're saying
And
when
you
you
will
have
you will set it
okay.
to null inside the implementation.
so you're saying if you mark it URI
Yeah. that doesn't make
question
sense.
In a
mark.
nulled out URI in a try pattern doesn't make sense. It's got to be out URI question mark.
It's sometimes.
Yeah, from actually reading the signature, that makes more sense.
And also, as a matter of fact, we haven't annotated URI yet.
Oh right, it's not in correlate. That's why we haven't done
Yep.
it. It's in system URI.
Yep, we haven't annotated it. That's why we didn't, like, this couldn't compile because we're setting result to null.
Right.
Because, all of yours is really just a.
So that actually is it just system private URI that's our hold in? Because we thought we had done everything, but apparently we missed that.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't have that in my list. I thought it must have been in my spreadsheet. Right. Unless my logic was completely fucked up when I intersected those.
Well, system private URI doesn't have a reference assembly, right? It contributes to system runtime.
System runtime exposes it.
Oh, because I only looked at
looked at the
what
types
reference
in the-
assemblies we have to annotate. Yes, that is true. Never
Thankfully,
mind.
I think the only three privates we have are system private core lib, system private URI, and system private XML, right? Or maybe there's a serializer one too, but not for system runtime.
Yeah, I don't have URI listed here, so.
All right, so we got to go fix URI.
All right,
In
so
general.
then let's skip everything that has URI in the name, because clearly that is all useless.
Do we need to do the same for private XML as well? Do we expose it through system runtime?
I hope
No,
not.
that's its own system.xml
Okay.
references.
Thanks,
It's
God.
actually like 5 references sometimes.
Hey, it's only 2,000 types. What's
Yeah,
wrong?
I know. That's why I was so scared.
But you will be scared of URI too, because the thing is like, I
Yeah.
don't know, 100,000 lines of code or something. In it.
Yeah.
So I think we went to tuple last time because that was before type. This looks like what I would expect it to do.
A tuple interface?
I think the only interesting one in tuples
Yeah.
was the last
that I
one.
mentioned?
I think there was something, if I remember correctly, there was something special about the one with Trest, but I don't remember what it was.
So with TREFs, what do you see TREFs?
Trest, like the biggest tuple that allows you to nest them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me just,
But I don't remember what I'm remembering.
I remember you remembered that you remembered nothing.
Yeah, this
You
one. What
just
was
said
the
it.
issue?
No.
Just one past.
What was that?
I feel like there was a constraint on the.
Trest probably does have a constraint on it.
Probably way of the screen.
Probably.
TREF struct.
Oh, this one wasn't an issue. All right.
So maybe regular tuple? Because this is value tuple.
Why is it not constrained to be ituple?
It's not public, right?
No, ituple is public.
Tuple should be public.
Here.
Is it?
Yep. We added it.
Huh.
It used to be private, but like we made it public.
Yeah,
It's
because
used by the
anybody,
compiler for better matching.
anybody can now implement it and then have their stuff be use deconstruction or be used for pattern matching.
I think the idea was that Trest, even ituple, isn't sufficient because basically it will throw if it's not a tuple, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not a value tuple.
Yeah, it needs to be very tuple.
Yeah.
Like passing in a tuple would also not work. But that's already covered by the constraint that it says it's a struct. So you could say struct, comma, ituple, close enough, but if you need Trest, quite frankly, I don't care about your experience because you're already like going down the crazy path.
And most people aren't dealing with that signature directly themselves anyway. They're just creating tuples.
Steve, did you need us to go look at tuple, like non-value tuple again, or was your problem or concern just with value tuple?
Are you asking me, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Those version question marks and comparable and equatable interfaces should go away, right?
Yeah, they've gone away with the attributes.
Yep.
So which ones go away?
The question
The
marks.
question marks in the comparable, equatable.
Why would they go away?
Because we use attributes.
We ran into an issue where, so let's say string is a better example. We had it where string implemented equatable of string, question mark. The problem with that is then you have other things that are constrained where they'll take like a T where T is equatable of T. And then string can't satisfy that because it's a T of equatable of T question mark. So we've changed all of the things that implement comparable and equatable to always be of themselves, not of their nullable version of themselves. And then we use the attributes that allow null and disallow null on the relevant fields in the arguments in the methods on those interfaces.
Oh man, that's not a failure point at all for customer.
The dictionary comparers.
Okay, let me write this down. Like that seems like.
And then with the attributes, you can specify that the various compare methods should actually accept null. You can take null.
Right. So in general, equals both arguments are allow null, and get hash codes argument is disallow null.
No matter what the type is, if it's nullable or not, you should be able to compare it to null if it implements equatable.
So how does this work then? The compiler allows you to satisfy the implementation because you cannot implement both, I guess, comparable of version question mark and comparable of version because it's the same type, right?
Right.
So they would already do that.
But wouldn't that just require the comparable interface sprinkling in the question marks?
It
Sorry,
puts
what?
in the attributes.
Well, because comparable, the problem is the comparable says that it wants to compare a T and a T, or that it wants to compare to a T.
Right.
And if that interface said it wanted T question mark, wouldn't that satisfy the constraint?
Well, that interface isn't constrained to class or question, so we can't put a question mark there.
So the best you can do is on the method put an attribute. But everybody gets it, right? So it's basically as good as that.
Unconstrained T question. Is it nullable? Is it a nullable value type or not?
Feelings like the feature go more extreme every time I see it.
To be fair, you're seeing all the corner cases, right? Which most of the time.
To be fair, he's not seeing all the corner cases.
Way to spark confidence.
Sorry.
Dear community, ignore what was just said. This feature adds value. Don't listen to the naysayers.
Yeah, this is correlate. It's
I didn't
hard.
indicate that the sign of my value, just that the absolute value was increasing. The rest you may have inferred from context.
That's more extreme. That implies you're already at it.
That's,
All right.
Wow, that seems like an analyzer.
I mean, it's not quite related to the content on the screen, but as a cynical question, we tried writing code now that we have all these attributes in, does the feature feel natural? Or does it feel
Well, pretty close to that. I think Santi's attributed or moved a bunch of these into the ref assemblies, and we're, I don't know, a week away or something, Santi, from having most of this surfaced.
Yes, I have like 10 to 15 reference assemblies to go out of 25.
So that means you're not shipping in preview 6, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, because we wanted to wait for the
For
API
everything,
reviews.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's sensible.
Also, a lot of this will, the experience with this will be a lot better in many cases with the attributes in place.
Right.
Yes.
But I think to your point, I think the proof is in the pudding. Like you actually have to write code against these APIs, which is why we want to ship them reference assemblies. I'm pretty sure that after 3.0 goes out, we will drown in feedback a little bit. But that's, I think, I don't see an alternative to this. You actually have to ship it to actually get a sense for that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Say, we need to go back and decorate 20 years worth of stuff and
Right.
figure out the intents and all that, and then try writing the code and see does it even still feel like the same.
Yeah, what I think is like, things like this here, right? Corner cases like that, where you just have to say, okay, the guidance is don't ever do that because otherwise bad things will happen. Those are the kind of things you will only find out when you actually use the feature in some sizable version.
Because like I know I enabled Nullable for some of my own projects, and it was pretty easy to enable it because I'd already said basically nothing could be nullable. But I'm kind of dreading needing to pull in corelib where things can be nullable because then I'm going to have to add annotations, even though I know it won't be nullable.
Yeah, I mean, I know
By no, you mean you think.
that we're proving things out and we're still charging. It's just that while Emo was taking notes, seeing success on.
Yeah, I think honestly, I would be shocked if we wouldn't, significantly make changes to the annotations between 3.0 and 5.0 based on feedback. Like, I don't think we will. I mean, I think like the math was like, look at this thing here. There was about 1,200 APIs or so that actually have nullable somewhere in System.Runtime alone. So I would not hope that we would churn through 1,000 of those, but there's probably some areas like link, for example, where it's not very clear what to do, and you probably have to play with the attributes a little bit to get a sense for that. Right?
Well, I think probably the biggest feedback will be for people who have libraries where they've said, I don't allow anything nullable, is making sure that when they call into a framework API that does allow nullability, making sure the annotations are there correctly so that they know, like, this accepts null, but if you don't give me a null input, I'm not going to give you a null output. So the user doesn't have to add null checks or annotations in their library to handle that.
Right.
So the try parse there, should the input be nullable?
That's what we
the
just said for
discussion we
try
had earlier this week.
So for try parse,
Yeah, I think the try parses, we were fine with the inputs being null. The question had been the main question had been on the format strings for like a try parse exact.
Okay.
But that one for the non-try is correct as not being null.
Yep.
Weak reference allows you to take a reference to a potentially null target?
Yeah, because you can create them and then subsequently assign a new target.
Oh, you can. Okay.
And if you made a weak reference, or weak references target, it's gone.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see target being potentially nullable. Yeah. Okay. Out should probably be annotated with maybe
Yeah,
null.
it has a maybe null when false. That just hasn't shown up. None of those attributes are showing up here yet.
All right, cool.
I need to wait until Stephen's change was consumed, which I think it was already, and then I need to run another pass on the ref assemblies to get the attribute.
Oh, and the class question here. The constraint for class question is, I don't believe we're allowing class question.
What?
Wait, why aren't we allowing class question?
I thought we were removing it, weren't we?
No, it was object.
It was object question.
Object,
yes. Okay, never mind.
object to be non-null.
Yeah, okay.
So what does this question mean here? That it can be
If it were just class, it would mean that when you could create a weak reference of T, you couldn't use a nullable T. And class question mark says you can use a nullable T.
So does class without a question mark mean non-null now?
Yes. And yeah.
And what's
It's
the
a
replacement
non-null
for
reference
object?
type.
We had object question, which was saying at one point, which is basically like the default, but we're removing that. So.
So
Because having object question is essentially the same as having nothing, no constraint.
We were allowing you to say where object to mean where not null, except that people don't think of value, like nullable value types as also inheriting from object. So we replace that with where not null.
then so the try get target here doesn't get a question mark because the attribute replaces the question mark instead of modify the question mark.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't put a question mark there. So we have it'll have a maybe null when false. Wait, no, this one might be not null when true. This one might be not null when true. I think that's what it is. Because it's constrained to class.
Yes.
And we know, with the semantics of weak reference, we know that try get target will always return not null. Will always give a not null if it returns true, since that's the whole point.
But does that mean that in calling code, do you have to put a strong T there and not a question mark T if you were declaring the variable on line? If you have a weak reference to a food,
You mean do you do a weak reference of string or a weak reference of string question mark? Is that what you're asking?
if you have a weak reference of string, can you out it to a string, or do you have to out it to a string question mark?
I believe with the attribute, you should be able. You'd have to add.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that.
Look.
So regardless of what it is today, obviously the experience we want is string question mark, because otherwise you're putting a potentially null value into a string bank.
Yeah.
Right. So.
But I don't think there's no way for me to say here, Fred, that T must be a nullable type, right?
Well, I mean,
The T was class. It was constrained to class.
No, that would be non-null.
it seems like we should be able. It seems like you should be able to put a question mark there, but because we know it's going to be a class, so we know nullable value type. We know what a question mark there is unambiguous, right?
But I can't do that today, right?
Don't remember. I don't think so.
I could be wrong. I don't think there's any way for me to say this is a generic that only works with nullable reference types.
Why would it only work with nullable? Why wouldn't it work with non-nullable?
Because the reference can die. So try get target can return false, and you get a null out.
Yeah.
Target's not guaranteed.
That's something I need to do.
And Steve, by the way, I'm looking at the implementation, and we have not null when true.
Right. So that's correct.
Yep.
Okay, I see. You're basically saying that we can't say that for a T where the user specified that it's non-nullable, that any T returned is also non-nullable. We need to be able to say that even if you give in a non-nullable T, we can still give you out a nullable T.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that's what the attribute's saying, then okay. And I don't.
So that's effectively what the attribute's saying. So I think, and we can try, but I think you'll be able to create a weak reference for either string or string question mark. If you create it for string, question mark behaves exactly as you expect. If you create it for string, you won't be able to pass null into the constructors or into set target, but I believe you will still be able to
Get a null.
I don't know. I think you'd have to bang away the try get target. Because the compiler will, if you try and pass a T question mark field as the out, or a T question mark local or something, I think the compiler will complain.
Well, it looks like you can do public class T where T is class, and then you can put nullable annotations on the individual parameters. You just can't say where T is class nullable and then use T question mark.
I see. So where T is colon class and then put question mark everywhere
There's
T
a T.
shows up in the APIs.
Right.
You could do that. It does seem to me like we should be able to put, and this is probably a question for LDM. It seems to me like you should be able to put a T question there because we know it's a class, so we know unambiguously what T question means. There's no chance it could be a nullable value type. We just know what it means. And then you would just be able to say not null when true and on the annotation.
We've got, just doing a quick search, we've got 11 places where we use :class ? So we'll want to go and look at those again to see whether those should be :class with a question mark on the T.
What did we decide here? Do we want it to be class question or class?
I think we need to
Yeah, I think we need to think this
we need an email.
Okay. But I do think that putting a T question there should be valid.
And when you say there, you mean
I mean on try get target. Regardless,
But does that mean that if we do word T class, then I will not be able to instantiate weak reference with string question mark?
Yeah,
You did
it
it with-
looks like you get a warning.
You'd have to instantiate it with string, but then you would be using string question mark at all the T call sites.
Right. So you would say it's of type T, but then you could pass in
A T
a T question mark to the individual methods.
but then that might impact anything that uses weak reference. Like if you had a conditional weak table of
Right.
something to string questions, right?
Right, or if you just had, if you had your own generic type that wrapped this thing, you wouldn't be able to use, and someone constructed that with a nullable, you wouldn't be able to use weak reference.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be
that
able
T.
to with a bang, right? But that's
Yeah,
non-ideal.
You could bang it away. Yeah.
I think that from an API
That's why we have, what was the number? 1,800 exclamation points in Corelib right now.
Yeah. So the good news is our code is very assertive. No, I think from an API design standpoint, I think it's nicer if we would constrain it to just class and put the question marks in the usage sides. Because I think if you just look at the generic API, I don't think people can do the substitution in their head easily if they just look at method signatures, right? It's nicer if you see T question mark than just T and now, T was constrained to class question mark. But I think when you actually look at code in IntelliSense, well, given the compiler will do the substitution, you would just see string question mark. But then you have the other problem of like, well, is this now overly constraining you to something that you may not want, right?
Yeah. The thing I'm concerned about with that is composability.
Yeah. Like I think in general, like we should probably do a :class and then just put the question marks in the usage side. It seems more.
I mean, like just from an API
Can you do
perspective,
both?
weak reference seems like it should just be
That I can't tell you. Maybe. I don't know what it means.
Can you
Holding
do
from
both?
to weak references.
Can you constrain to class question mark and put the question marks?
No.
It doesn't let you do that.
No.
It seems like in that case you would need something like T bang to say, even though T is allowed to be nullable, this individual use case says non-null. But we don't have a concept of that today.
And that's what I was saying. It seems like we should allow the question mark for when you've constrained to class question. Probably not in scope for initial.
All right. Let me scroll down then.
So we haven't decided yet.
So I just took an action item. We need to revisit what we do with :class and :class question mark. It seems like you have to decide one way or the other, and then you just fix up whatever we have.
Sure.
Yeah, I
Interval
think
can be null. Oh, yes, it can.
I
That's the
mean-
default value, of course.
things like this seem very easy, right? It's like, there's only one correct answer.
We must not be in the whole default.
I really want us to give like an error on those.
Does dictionary allow null keys, like the non-generic one?
No,
No, it
keys,
doesn't.
No.
You all seem very sure about this, but remember that non-generic
spent a lot of
dictionary
time on
also gives
this.
you null outputs.
I'm pretty sure it does.
That allows null keys?
No, that it will error on null keys. Sorry.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Didn't complete my
Yeah.
sentence.
Sorry. We went round and round on what to do about this one.
It
All the
doesn't look.
dictionaries basically throw if key is null.
Dictionary entry currently does not throw if you give it a null key.
Yes.
No, dictionary entry does not, but all the dictionary types do. And so this is another question of, if we say that dictionary entry took a null key, well, then we have to say that it's object question mark key, even though the only place you really get dictionary entries from are dictionaries that will never provide a null key.
Yeah, in other words, if you do normal for each loop over dictionary, now you have to guard your fucking access to key every single time. Which is
And actually, that's we annotated dictionary at the beginning. We annotated dictionary entry with a nullable key, but then we decided that was the only way you could get that is from dictionary.
Yeah.
Structs in this world are complicated. Any struct that wraps a reference type and exposes it, like it, in theory, it has to be nullable. But in a lot of cases, the common use case, the vast majority use cases, it will never be null.
Yeah.
And so it's a judgment call.
Only we could just say you can't make default values of structs. Not allowed to use default. Go away.
Yeah, that'll work well.
I think we can probably change C# to disallow tabs before we do that. That might be less
You
controversial.
might upset Miguel.
Oh, he likes F#. F# does it already, so. All right, so I compare makes sense. Dictionary clearly makes sense.
And it's also inconsistent.
Isn't structural comparable only for structs?
No, structurally comparable and structurally equatable is the super complicated feature that we did for F#, which I discussed with Will the other day again. It's really hard to wrap your head around what it does. Every single time I thought I got it, turns out I didn't. So, but the rough summary is effectively it allows you to walk an entire structure and passing down the comparer from the outside, which otherwise you can't do. And so, for some reason, they basically you basically can always compare to a null on the other side, right? It's the same with equatable and all the other things where we said you can always compare with null and the answer might be 0 or null. Comparable is a bit weird because I don't know what, I think we usually define nulls as first, I think, or something, and then it's -1 or +1.
Yeah, and then all of the spot checking, the iStructural comparable compared to implementations, they all happily null ref on compare being null.
Yeah. I think in those, the compare cannot be null. Yeah.
Oh, it can. You just put a null reference exception out.
It seems odd for an F# feature to allow nullable in the first place as well.
I mean, comparing to the other side being null is very common, right?
Well, I mean, in F# nullabilities been a thing since like V1 of the language.
Oh, sure, but you couldn't
Implied,
express it
yeah.
in the BCL, right? So you would not put in an F# attribute in the core type.
Look at that. iDictionary has the word tiki object.
Yeah, that'll become where tiki : not null.
No, yeah.
That's actually interesting that it's not diffing yet.
Oh, the reason why it is not definite is because I added it before the null. Like,
Okay.
like the version that Emo has without nullable annotations already has a constraint.
Ah, okay. I thought we just found another bug. Damn.
Yeah.
Well, the bug in this case is I didn't pull the latest version.
Hold on. Try.
Non-null.
I'm assuming try get
Colon,
value
in a way,
is going to be annotated.
Oh, non-null.
Or non-nullable.
Yes.
Yeah, that try get value has
And it will make it
not maybe
null.
null but false value.
Okay.
It will just be an attribute.
Maybe null because struct type.
Cool.
Maybe null because we don't know whether t value is a nullable type.
Okay.
And so it could be that someone successfully added a pair of foo and null. And so we say get the value for foo, and it says true, null.
When people use dictionary when they really just meant hash or hash. As you said. I was looking at hash table, which is the non-generic version.
Yeah, it's the non-generic dictionary. And same for deconstruct here. Is that going to be maybe nullable?
Couldn't be, right?
That's a good question. That attribute won't work there. So what did I do?
Well, it would just be whatever t value is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no need for an attribute here.
Yeah. Okay.
Deconstruct
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
isn't
Right.
like conditionally succeeding.
Right.
Yeah.
Does p-value pair need the non-null marker for key?
No, because
This is not used.
unlike dictionary entry, which we decided is always used with dictionaries, value pair isn't, and so there's nothing that says t key must not be null.
Okay, so it didn't check it in reality? Okay.
No, for key value pair, the problem is also we decided kind of that, like, because we didn't have tuples, we used this thing basically as a poor man's tuple and all over the place. And not just us. Customer code is it too.
No, it's better than tuple because our guidelines say avoid using tuples, and this one has a name, so
Again, please jury outside, disregard what was just said. Disregard the witness's testimony. Is read only.
Collection.
Okay. So what are we doing for those kind of guys? Are we literally putting attributes on every single method that takes a t now?
Sorry, what are you asking about?
Well, so how do we express the fact that the t? I mean, I suppose we will allow t to be nullable, right?
Well,
It's
you
called
will
the
take the
collection of
value of t, right? Whatever you created the type with.
So if you make a collection of non-nullable strings, then you shouldn't be able to put null
Never
strings
mind.
in.
Never mind. I'm done.
Yeah.
Disregard what I just said.
No, don't worry. Generics
No,
are confusing. Everybody has gone through that process
because-
of like we should put an
Yeah.
attribute there.
And because they're also basically the opposite of normal.
They're confusing as all heck.
The hardest thing with generics for me has been that inside an implementation of a generic method or a method on a generic type, you have to assume that all inputs might be null, and yet you can't give null as an output.
Well, you can, but with gymnastics, right?
With lots of exclamation points.
And or saying that output once we implement the rest of the attributes. Or what is the type parameter actually used for?
So where?
Default value attribute.
That's just more of a curiosity.
Maybe for decimal.
Yeah.
It's just not exposed anywhere. I was just curious.
No, I think this is the like the whole default value attribute is effectively a way to say on a property what is its
Yeah.
default value, and it can be any type, and it goes through the whole type converter. Well, bullshit, right? So like almost any type that the designer has, they have a type converter to string. So like you can have type could be point, and then string is like open paren 3 comma 4
Yeah.
close paren, right?
Like it supports time span and enum.
Okay.
Actually, I'm actually wondering. So I had attributed this as question mark, but I'm doubting myself.
Which one?
So the type. The implementation allows null, but it allows null by just saying if null return, which means it doesn't even store the value. Basically, it's protecting itself from null refing. Which makes me, the intent here is really that if you're using this constructor, you're giving it a type to use to interpret value.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we should just remove that question mark.
Probably should. Like, I mean, in general, for attributes, the only way you can actually, the component model attributes are a bit different because they actually get instantiated in code left and right.
So the comment is the null check and try catch here are because attributes should never throw exceptions. We would fail to load an otherwise normal class.
Interesting.
So the type really is supposed to be non-null.
No.
Yeah. All right. Let me write this down. I mean, like for most attributes, basically the only way you can get in now is by the literal, right? Which is almost never useful. You sound very healthy too.
You're right, Tanner.
I've got something in my throat.
Is it an out of reference time?
Yeah, apparently. You should fix your display to sort enums numerically rather than alphabetically.
Why?
Because it's annoying to see 201.
But like 2 weeks ago, this was matching the order of the reference.
Yeah, but I updated the reference assembly generator.
It didn't until about 2 weeks ago.
Yep. And so most of these attributes are cases where we won't actually throw if you pass in null because we don't want to do that for attributes. But we're saying you really shouldn't provide null here. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you put a
Right,
conditional
and in fact,
attribute
if
with
you
a
use
null,
them-
what does it even mean? Right?
If you use them with in the language and you give it null, the compiler, even attributes aside, the compiler complains.
Well, the ones it knows about, right? Which is
For the ones it knows about, exactly.
I think for things like this, right? Again, like there's no case where you have a nullable variable somewhere, right? Because the only way you can put in these things is literals. So you would have to actually have to type null in source code, which is
Or use a constant.
which is virtually not ever useful, right?
Right, but like in the with conditional case, the null feature aside, if you just write conditional null,
Yeah.
the compiler gives an error saying the argument to the conditional attribute must be a valid identifier. So the intent really is that you're not providing null here.
And we need to change the way output. These are all reference types, or struct types, I mean.
Yep.
Calendar that's not an array-based calendar returns the empty array and not the full array.
Where do you see that?
Above add days.
If you
I'm not sure we have any that return empty.
I mean, like.
I mean, I don't think we
doesn't-
don't have any that return null, but I don't know that we have any that return. I think everyone has. All of our calendars have errors, right? Even if it's just one.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Do we define the Gregorian calendar to have an era or no eras because it's just?
We do. We have. It's defined to have the AD era, which is one, the number one.
Okay.
And I guess you could conceive of a calendar with no arrows, but then I would expect you to just return the empty array.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like honestly, every time you have a collection, now there's almost always a bad return value. Because empty is your absence of anything kind of situation.
I mean, that works for. I guess, well, it depends on the thing.
Yeah, definitely go on the SQL path where, not knowing whether you have eras or having no eras is a different state. It's like, you're the API author. Like, not knowing is not a thing for you.
Sure. I mean, it's the I saw a square bracket go by. And
Yeah.
I was trying to think if I had to write a calendar, what would I think that the answer for Gregorian was? I'm like, well, I know it's not the Japanese calendar, so null.
Calendar week rule and day of week are both structs, right?
You should read the book.
No,
I think it says somewhere you should also turn down for collection.
Okay.
Pretty sure there's a rule somewhere. Get decimal value. Oh god. Oh, I'm amazed somebody spelled out the identifiers.
We pick great names sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least it's not called _x.
I honestly would prefer X and Y for string 1 and string 2 over string 1 and string 2
Why?
because it makes sense from a mathematical perspective.
The A and B would be better because then you're not thinking of suffix. Like you just name it like A and A length and A offset, and you're like done. Left and right. Anything's better than string 1.
LHS, RHS.
Yeah, that's worse.
You don't like left-hand side?
ESZR1. ESZR2. For the record, I do not like. I was being. The default culture can be null, but the other one can't.
So what can be
Do all cultures have parents? At some point, this is going to be like when Bill Gates reported to himself.
Wait, so why can the default thread culture return null?
And you used to be able to in the gal when you got to the CEO. The CEO had to report to himself because the gal couldn't handle there not being a reports to. So,
Tanner, to answer your question, the default, like if I just say thread culture or culture info dot default thread current culture, it just returns null, like right out of the gate.
We don't call thread current culture.
Nope.
Huh.
okay. But it feels like at some point parent is either returning this or null. Like the graph has to end somewhere.
You say that, but
Walking it may be an infinite loop, but it will terminate. There are a finite number of cultures.
It looks like if nothing else, it'll end up as invariant.
and invariant is
But is invariance parent itself? Or is it null?
It'll end up being null, and then it'll end up being invariant. So I think it's itself, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can test that quickly.
I'm just seeing a thing named parent that can't be null was an immediate flag in my head.
I would agree with that. That seems like an impossible thing.
So invariant culture parent equals culture info dot.
It's really just a question of
Yeah,
what came first.
culture info dot invariant culture dot parent is object equality with
answer to
culture
that.
info dot invariant culture.
Okay.
And I'm assuming there are no cultures without 3-letter ISO names or Windows names or 2-letter ISO names. Seems interesting that it could be both 2-letter and 3-letter.
We might return
Empty.
string empty.
Okay.
I think for strings, we mostly avoid returning null and give you an empty if there's no sensible answer.
All right.
And I assume get culture info throws if the thing doesn't exist, right? I think that's what we checked last time.
Culture not found exceptions, likely.
Yeah, I think that answers my previous question.
The culture things are ultimate fallback.
What type is also
So, how do like on this one? I assume that we're saying not null because all of ours are not null, and we expect anyone who's implementing it to also not return not null, or to also
Which one are you
always
talking
return
about?
not null. All these date-time format infos.
Yeah.
That if you're
Well-
creating a custom culture, you should be providing all these values.
Well, it's sealed.
Yeah, but presumably you construct it, right? You're the one that uses it up and sets it to some value, right?
All right, because they're all settable.
Yeah, or at least half of them are, yeah.
And we'll warn you when you're putting all in. So
But this
Oh, well,
one's probably more.
we'll throw if you we throw if you try and set most of these to null.
oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure, I can't swear by all of them, but just scrolling through all the setters I've seen thus far do if value equals null, throw argument null exception.
Which also seems reasonable, right?
Okay.
I mean,
Just because some of these things are, sort of configuration options from the user. How much are we signaling intent versus it? Those were very honest with their beliefs in me.
so unless somebody has a pushback, I would just scroll over all the calendars because we're with calendar, and most of them are just overriding stuff. So
Anything that's not faded out.
A great name. Use standard free ASCII roles.
Yep.
presumably that does not mean standard direct 3.
Probably means IDN mapping version 3.
There is no .NET standard 3. .NET standard 2. Get out of the week. This calendar. All my info. I think same applies here.
Yeah, we say most of these can't be null.
Version 1, region, and sort key.
What key is that?
I forgot. I think we use it somewhere to have custom sort keys for things in globalization.
No one can system. Because we have a lot of times they sort keys.
Get sort key is apparently on compared.
Very important. Does sort key compare doesn't accept null sort keys?
I don't think. I mean, given that keys probably don't compare very well in there now.
Sort key compare rows basket. Okay. Like I've never seen this type. So.
Which tells you how important that thing is to be extended.
Well, I mean, like again, it's returning some sort of array. Is this a constructor thing that it has an internal constructor? So presumably, we promise we never give you back null.
Never heard of sort version either, but it takes a GUID. That must be good. One calendar. Globalization is hard. I didn't know we had a two title case method. Actually quite useful.
Yeah, it's probably.
Probably better than what I would write though. So I can't even pronounce this one. So I think you know how to pronounce it. To me, there's like things that I don't even know how to put them in next to each other in my mouth. Right. File access, attributes.
So I assume that for serialization info, you just assume that because when the runtime does it, it won't pass null, that we'll just say that they're never null.
Yeah, I think that's what we said last week.
So
So
fusion
pretty
lock
much
can,
every implementation we have will null ref if you pass null.
and fusion lock can actually be null. We don't return an empty string.
Mm,
It seems odd.
that is correct.
Not a property that it never gets assigned.
One string. Here we go.
You can't provide a callback, or you have to provide a callback.
Where are you looking?
We'll begin reading.
Begin read and begin
Yes.
write.
Yeah, you have to provide it. Oh no, those can be null. Those are overrides.
Yeah.
What does it mean to do begin right without a callback?
It's you use the async result that's returned.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You might have this wrong on stream as well. Then, otherwise we'd get a warning. Let's see.
Well, I disabled the warnings for ref assemblies.
No, I meant in the implementation.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we
yeah.
have it wrong on the base as well.
All right.
Callback should be, both callback and state should be nullable for both begin read and begin write.
It looks like in the stream, the begin read as callback is non-nullable, and then it just calls begin read internal where it was nullable.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I took note of that.
With the override showing head value.
Have we already reviewed stream, or we just haven't gotten there yet?
I don't think we have gotten there yet because it's I/O.
Right. Okay.
Flush lock. Alright. Yep, we are just in I/O. For the same, where would I/O exception be? If not I/O. I/O exception.
File services. There it is.
I didn't know we had a cached null stream. Wait, why?
Yeah, I use it a lot, but only in tests.
Why is it null but not nullable?
Because it's
Because
not,
it always
Because it's
returns
not
an
null.
empty something.
Oh,
It's not-
right. It's
It always
It's
returns
not
an
a null
empty string.
It's,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the useless stream.
Yeah.
It's a no op. Yeah.
Dev null is very useful.
Yes.
it's the pipe to
If
void.
you're writing to it. If you're reading from it.
yeah, it's a null pattern, right?
Dev null is a service website that is.
Tokens of value type.
What the fuck is this object invariant thing? Was that from contracts?
Do not call or override this method. Obsolete.
Glad we have that conversation. Ambiguous match exception. My god. We have a lot of exceptions actually, as it turns out.
No one catches it.
I assume for exported types, it doesn't export any types, you just get an empty enumerable.
Yep.
And this is reflection, so I shouldn't ask questions like, why does create instance return nullable instead of try create instance, right?
That is
Create
fairly true.
instance returns nullable because the type might be a nullable value type.
Like int nullable.
So,
I can see Tanner's eyes falling out of his head right now.
but if you return,
Yeah, wouldn't that box the?
Yeah,
No.
the box.
You would
the box
think, but
default is
thanks
a
to the
null.
unification rules we shipped in .NET 2, .NET Framework 2, it returns null.
okay, so creating nullable of int returns null from that.
Not-
It returns
Correct.
the object null.
Not boxed nullable of
Correct.
not boxed nullable event. No.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean it's internally consistent.
It's questionable as design choice, but
When would assembly have a null name? I think we went over this last week, but I don't remember. I think we went over it for type.
Yeah, we said something.
Would,
I don't remember.
If you,
Leave.
We said that
what's
the full
that
name
make
being
code on the
valid
fly
as well.
technology we have?
Emit?
Yeah, like if you ref emitted an assembly, would it have a name?
yes, you have to pass in one. The agreed upon name is dummy.
But I mean, just like because assembly is abstract, and then we therefore know about several types of assembly. Presumably, one of them doesn't have.
It looks like it's because if you happen to call object.toString, which itself calls into full name, then val may be null, in which case the full name may be null.
Sorry, wait, what? Say that again?
There's a comment in here that says if called by object.toString, return value may be null.
Where are you looking?
Runtime assembly, which is what assembly, well, one of the implementations of full name ends up calling into. Because the
doesn't make sense to me.
the default implementation grows, and then the override in assembly builder calls into internal assembly, which itself calls into which is itself the same as the runtime assembly one. And it looks
Why don't we
like
take this one offline? We can follow up on assembly full name.
yeah,
I think we should just take note and say that seems odd.
yeah, and the comment seems odd too.
Assembly full name.
Why can get assembly when given a type return null? How can you have a type without an assembly it came from?
Generic parameter, for example, or
Oh yeah,
But-
okay.
that was the thing last thing where we
Yeah.
say like full name on type name, for example.
We did say that, and I forgot about it.
I guess same with manifest module, right? Seems like you should always have it.
I guess that also still seems a bit odd to me for a generic type parameter which has to be attached to a method or a field or a class or something else doesn't have an assembly, because presumably you could just say it's the assembly of whatever
Yeah.
type parameter comes from.
Now you're changing the answers. We don't ever do that.
That one seems like a massive breaking change. Yeah, there's probably code that relies on this being, oh, if it's not, now it's one of those guys. And like, I mean, in V1, I agree with you. Like, seems like a very funky way to define this event.
Yep. File returns null.
I
Get
assume if you give it an invalid file name.
I would assume a throw. Whose get file is that?
Assembly. I don't even know what that means. I suppose it's one of the modules that you can have. But I don't know why you would ask for a file stream. Also, I like how you just return multiple file streams, but yeah. I guess that's...
So this
You
is one of
can
the
get a
things, it
resource,
goes into the
right?
runtime, so I'd have to look in the runtime to see what it's doing, but the implementation just calls get module, and if that returns null, it returns null.
Yeah, but same argument, right? Like, why would get module return null, right?
Don't know.
You clearly have to have one.
Oh,
Well, get module doesn't return null, right? That's right.
What do you
no,
say there?
according to the implementation,
Oh,
it does.
Even the docs say get module returns null if the module is not found.
Well, then that's wrong here.
Then
Yep.
Yeah. Like the fact that the implementation of get file starts by turning get module into a nullable runtime module means that obviously we believe that was wrong.
Wait, sorry, what?
So which
What-
one
what
are
are
we
we
talking about?
Get
Yeah.
module string name, second from the bottom on the screen right now.
Oh, this one here.
Return null.
In the implementation, there's a question mark there.
Then the reference assembly is wrong.
Oh, and I see the cast here is because it's going to a derived type.
Oh, interesting. There's a question mark on the override, but not on the base.
And there was no warning?
And there's no warning.
That's a bug.
Isn't the warning disabled globally?
Are they in split contexts?
We need to turn that off.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you
Side
can we
note?
verify that? And if that's actually not the case, make sure to file a bug on the compiler. That should have been a warning.
We should turn that off and go and disable the warnings only on the ones that we still believe is a compiler bug.
Yep. I think the covariant parameters and covariant return types issues were closed last week or the previous.
Yeah, they
week.
were fixed. I just don't know if we've gotten that tool set yet.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and update the compiler. Try to disable the warnings and see what it blows off.
Also, how the fuck can get name return an assembly name, but then full name returns null?
Assembly and some love.
Wait, so what makes us believe that a type can return null for the assembly for generic type parameters? Because the docs indicate that it returns the assembly that contains the generic type.
Sorry, it was not
one
the
thing at a
assembly, it
time.
was
What
the
are we
full
talking
name.
about now?
For assembly module and full name, why did we believe it returns null for generic type parameters? Because looking at the docs, it indicates it returns the assembly and such of the containing
Yeah,
that contains the
I
generic
said
type.
that, but what I meant was because last time we figured out that if you call the full name property on system.type, that it said like it will return null for the full name if it's a generic parameter, because it doesn't have a namespace, so namespace is null, and thus full name is null. Could still return something for assembly.
But you don't have to have a namespace to get a full name.
Apparently, namespace is returning null, though, not empty string.
The get type overloads should probably have the return type annotated. And then one of the attributes for not null when true.
We don't have a way to express that.
Yeah, they've just got to be nullable returns.
Okay.
But
We don't have the not null when only applies to the return
Yeah.
rule. We don't have one that allows you to name a parameter.
Right.
This and other reflection types cases where it was throw on error or something like that was kind of the primary case for that attribute, but didn't make it.
Well, we should still probably make the return type null.
on
Right.
two that accept throw on error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one non-nullable. Yep. It's throw.
Wait, that's interesting. In the implementation does return, like this is type.getType, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, this is
Assembly.
This is
Assembly.
assembly.getType.
Yeah, but we set this for the other one. I think for type get type we said that.
Yeah, so these need to return.
So the docs seem to indicate that it returns null for a bunch of cases, but we don't return null for any of those cases.
Which one are you talking about? No.
Full name still. We don't return null for any of the cases.
Okay, I've taken note that we need to look into this because it seems like
And it also seems weird that full name would return null, but get name doesn't.
yeah, that's the other thing I wrote down.
Okay.
Like
Let's move on.
internal consistency.
As long as we've written it down.
And then we said this one should return null, correct?
The
Nullable.
two
Yeah,
which
I'll
accept
get
throw
that.
and error.
The assembly dot
Two
get
with
ten.
throw and error.
I assume the assemblies load and load file and those others will throw if you're given invalid stuff.
Oh wait, actually they should all return null
Even the other one?
because the top one uses throw and error false.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
weird.
I assume all the loads just throw if you're given an invalid assembly data or invalid assembly name, etc.
Yeah.
All right. Get types. Find load.
Yep. Assembly, the assembly.get type with just a string. The doc say returns the class or null if the class is not found. It says class though, so obviously it can't find.
That's the real reason why Java doesn't have value types, because it only has class loaders. Like they don't know how to load anything else.
What?
Load model accepts
Yeah, what does
a
load-
nullable
Yeah.
model name.
And why would assembly load from except a null file?
Yeah, that seems weird. Reflection only load accepts nullable bytes.
So
I
what
guess
does hash value do?
I guess what we're saying in .NET Core is we don't care if you pass null in assembly load from with all that stuff because it just does not support an exception. Well, it says don't call this. It's a static. It's not virtual. It just says don't call this.
In other words, we could literally mark it anything we want.
Well, then we
Yes.
should probably mark them not nullable because those at least make sense.
But we won't throw an argument null exception.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, so
The load module also throws?
I guess the real question is what does load or what does framework do?
Also, I guess load module probably is you can either specify the name or the byte array.
Okay, so for the whatever one I was making fun of, assembly load from, in framework, it will throw an argument null exception if assembly.
So probably best to just make it non-null.
Yeah. So make all the things. All the things.
Hash value might be able to be null, right?
Hash value might be.
Yeah.
Assembly hash algorithm.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So assembly file should be non-null, but it doesn't matter.
And then load
Load
module.
model shouldn't accept nulls, right?
The only thing I could see is that you're supposed to call it with either the name or the module. But that seems like a really funky API design.
Oh, it throws. It use throws. Not implemented by design.
As opposed to
Not implemented because we're lazy.
like
Yes, again, what it's throwing is go away. Don't want you doing this. Go away.
resolved because
Like we literally have an internal static class not implemented that has an internal static exception called by design, which just throws new not implemented exception.
I mean, really, I think it's the marker of have an analyzer that be like, you used CodeGen to repopulate this class, and you didn't write this yet. No, really, I said that.
no, I knew what I was doing when I was doing it.
Okay, 3 module, right?
Anything else? Fine, I guess. Interesting that load with partial name returns
Okay, the
nullable.
yeah, the load module, the one that doesn't throws if module name is null, or if raw module is null. So they're both non-nullable.
You're talking about on desktop for reference, Jeremy?
No, so there's a reflection. So there's if you get a read-only assembly module or something, I looked at overrides of load module, and I found one of them at roassembly.modules.cs, which throws argument null exception if either module name is null or raw module is null, and then it does more work, which may have eventually result in failing. But
And the overload that just takes the 2 calls the one that takes the 3?
yep.
Okay.
So those are both mandatory arguments.
Raw module?
Yep.
Because it looks like on the framework implementation there's a null check. It guards it against it.
Yeah, so I said it's mandatory.
No, it just says if raw module is not null, then return the length, otherwise set it to 0.
Yeah. So here's this one is if raw module is null, throw argument null exception.
What are you looking at?
I don't know.
You're looking at core, right? I'm looking at full framework.
Yeah, this one's core and some weird type in some weird place.
Yeah, so in the full framework implementation, we call into something in assembly CS that basically says load module, which I cannot follow any further. I suppose it's not indexed, and that basically has at least it guards against raw module being null, but it meaning as in it accepts it to be null, but it doesn't throw for it. So I would expect at least raw module to be nullable on full framework. But yeah, my K level is low. Like it's not like one of those APIs you call 100 times a day. So what was the conclusion? We marked them both as non-nullable?
What about load with partial name? Why does it return the nullable assembly where all the other loads don't?
Because basically, I think load with partial name, I think might actually return you null when it can't find it.
Okay.
But load with partial name is also deprecated, so
It says catch
Call load
comma
with
find
partial
exception
name,
return
get
null.
an arbitrary string, and get back null.
Okay.
and the load module name.
Try load. Anyway.
Module.
Sure. I think if it thinks the assembly name is gibberish, it'll post. Yeah. If it's only returning null if file's not found. Unless runtime assembly internal load has a.
What about the reflection only loads? Those parameters be not nullable?
I think that's wrong. I don't know why they accept null values, though. I would expect them to. I mean, they probably throw, but they might throw a different exception then.
Okay, well, they're PNSE on core.
The level is low.
Yeah, reflection only load. Probably it's the same ballpark as the other one, right? If you always throw, then
And framework. I mean, framework just immediately drops into the CLR, so.
yeah, I would be shocked if they accept null values there.
But, yeah, it does contract ensure the result is not.
Oh boy.
What about unsafe load from?
Ensures result is not null ensures that the result has reflection only, or sorry, it is not reflection only, and then it drops into the CLR.
And does it accept null?
It doesn't contract assert that it didn't get null, and then it drops into the CLR. So all I know is it drops into the CLR right away.
Well, if it guarantees a non-null return value, how would you process a null value? Like you must go for null, right?
True.
Unless they return some random assembly, right?
Yeah, it might return this assembly.
If assembly file is null, returns call it.
Well, because it does have the
Because why
frightening,
not?
it's stack crawl marks, so it does have context to who called this. So it's possible that passing null is go find my current assembly.
Jesus.
This is in the magic with stack crawl. Stack crawl's amazing.
Okay.
It's the secret for go load every single assembly that the runtime can find on your disk.
Well, like if you thought reflection was awesome, then stack crawl mark is even more awesome.
I did not think reflection was awesome.
Let's try to finish at least reflection. Jesus Christ, how can we not be done with this?
Is reflection the largest individual group?
Well, it is one
Other
of
than
the-
system?
It's like tool 4, so the other ones should be faster, yeah.
I
Although
guess-
those numbers are not.
So again, things like assembly copyright, we're just asserting that if you wrote one down, you didn't pass null because that would be stupid.
Yeah.
And flags.
Like again, the value of passing null in these things is non-existent. I just omit the attribute.
I mean, something like assembly copyright is mostly written down by the PS project thing.
Right, which defaults to some string, right?
Yeah, and if you erased it, it would probably just write.
I need to file a bug for this. We can really fix this.
Fix what?
Assembly metadata attribute is currently constrained to only be applicable to assemblies, which we should just allow it everywhere. Because it's basically just generic key value pairs of shit. So why would that only apply to assemblies?
Because it says assembly metadata.
Well, it is still assembly metadata.
Yeah, if we want to let something apply everywhere, then perhaps we should introduce a new attribute for that instead of taking assembly metadata attribute.
The anywhere metadata.
Yeah, that's exactly why I think we should just make it universally available, because what more do you need?
The code base is probably
Not
null
break
for
assumptions.
artificial assemblies. Culture is if it specify. Oh, this is assembly name. All these are the you didn't give me these pieces.
Okay, info.
Get public key token is never null, but the public key can be.
Yeah, because we return. Oh,
Okay, I can throw. Public key token is null. Calculated. Turn it. Of course. But if I drop it.
Yeah, I would be shocked if that seems inconsistent. I would agree with that.
what about get public key?
Stop asking good questions. I need to finish.
I mean, that looks correct, actually. Get
What?
public key just returns a field public key, whereas get public key token does lazy initialization.
Yeah, but if you had no public key, what's it producing as the token? Is
I
it
don't know,
here?
it's calling into the CLR, we'd have to look.
Right.
But get public key is just returning a public key field that's stored on the instance, and like you can just say new assembly name dot public key and it, get public key and it'll be null.
Right.
I have no idea what. We can check quickly and see.
I guess one question though is why can you call set public key and give it a null public key? That's something we actually want to support, like
So,
turning
sorry,
it off.
get public key token should also be nullable.
Right, because
Did you just test it?
I did.
Okay.
So get public key token should be nullable.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
because for both cases it returns null when you have no key.
I mean, quite frankly, for the set ones, I don't see a reason why we would not allow nouns, because if it's literally just setting the contents of the class,
Right.
I mean, having not a public key is a valid configuration, right?
Yeah, because
It is. I just the question was, well, if you have no public key, why are you calling this place?
well, I mean, like ideally, you should always be able to just do new thing dot public key equal old thing dot public. So if
Yeah.
null came out of one, it should go into another.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Otherwise, now you have to start conditionally assigning. And that's,
Yeah. That's also a good point. Yeah.
So.
Yep, so then all of these nullables seem reasonable. They're just annoying when you just read an assembly name from somewhere, right? Because now everything can be turned out.
One more quick question.
Yep.
The default constructor, I assume it sets full name to be just the empty string?
Sure. Seems like a reasonable assumption.
Because it's just the full name
If-
is not returning
If
null.
name is null, return empty.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Otherwise, do a lot of work.
Cool.
Otherwise, do a lot of work. All right. Talked about these attributes. Here's my favorite tool, the binder.
Your binder is not my binder.
Well, your binder is 12,000 files and 100,000 methods.
It is.
Although nothing dwarfs your, what is it called? Nullable reference types test.cs.
Yep, I think it's the largest file on all of github.com/.net.
Managed probably, yeah. I think OGC CPP still dwarfs that.
That's possible.
But hey, let's not throw stones.
Or am I talking about files that cross the 500,000 line area?
What does it mean to have a custom attribute data that doesn't have an attribute type? That seems wrong.
Probably later create instance and get the default feedback. Of course, then what's it turning as a
Yeah, I mean, if you have a constructor info, you clearly have a type, right? I mean,
All right, so this is because member info. So the composition right now is member info apparently is allowed to have a null declaring type. That's what it is.
Sure.
And then the implementation says ask
could
the
have
constructor,
global
which is
members in
non-null, what
IL,
its
but not
declaring
in
type
C#.
was.
and
And
that's
since that
not
was
the
null,
null.
it's propagating the null. I don't know that that actually makes sense in context. But
I think that seems wrong.
I'm also not sure how you have a member info that doesn't have a declaring type.
You can in IL in some cases.
Actually, would the module for VB? If you had a shared sub on a module, would that have a
I
declaring
think
type?
VB emits that as a internal class, much as we do with private implementation details. And although thinking about it, it might be that
Oh,
we also in IL put them into the module, the hidden module class for global members.
But a constructor info.
maybe not.
A
The meeting
constructor
might end in
info
2
should
minutes.
always have a declaring type. Right, so-
What if it's a global constructor, a module initializer, for example?
we return those reflection as a constructor info.
I do not know. That's getting into the this isn't C#. This is
Indeed.
you'd have to go read the runtime spec semantics.
I don't think you can. Like, I mean, custom attributes by definition must be types.
No, sorry,
So I don't think you can ever have that. I mean, you might have a member that may be null, depending on how you do them, but this constructor info clearly must be on a type because it was applied as an attribute, which must be a type.
I'm just wondering, like, we have member info says that the declaring type can be null, and apparently we have scenarios for that. And then I'm wondering if the derived type off of member info, constructor info, should assert that it will never return null out of it. If we're allowed to override and reduce
Yeah.
the question mark.
Okay, should our derivatives of member info assert declaring type to be non. Okay.
Is I think the only reason that custom attribute data dot attribute type is null is because it was propagating that.
Yeah. All right, get custom attribute data. This all makes sense.
I guess get custom attribute is null if you can't find it.
Yep. Makes sense.
So custom attribute type argument can not take a null value on the first constructor and on the second.
Well, because this one is the literal value, right? This is some other stuff here. This is this guy here, which basically
No, I think he meant
this can be.
I meant the custom attribute type argument.
like the first constructor.
The
just
first constructor
takes
doesn't take a null.
not there.
This is
There. First constructor doesn't take a null. Second one does, and the return type
Oh.
and value can return a null. Seems like that should probably be a null inputted.
Well, I guess that is true because you need to know the type. Right? How would you know the type if you pass in null for the first one?
As far as I can tell, if you shove the null in here, take it. I would just do something. Right. So if you put null into the first one, where it's object, that will wrap it in a custom attribute type target argument. Custom attribute typed argument.
No, that's this one. We are talking about this one here. If you construct this guy, what happens? Not this one. This one. The one you just talked about.
Okay.
This one should, like, given that this guy promises to return a type, I don't know what it would do if you pass in null here, because null doesn't have a type.
So the one argument says if value is null, throw argument null exception,
Yeah, okay.
and the two argument one says the argument must. Presumably, it's I need to be able to derive a type.
Yes. That's what I thought. But then it's marked correctly.
Yep.
Return the point.
Yeah.
Event not have an add.
Well, malform metadata. I mean, technically speaking, in IL, that's legal.
Okay.
But yeah, also nobody will ever guard for this.
Now they will, because now the compiler will warn them.
Yeah, right.
Are there any languages where they may not provide an add or remove?
I think we had the discussion during the IL metadata discussion at some point, and like, it's odd, but it's legal in IL. The question is how we want to deal with that, right? We basically said that at the metadata level, we will just, like, reflection metadata will just expose what's in IL and make no statements about what's legal or not. I
For
guess in
reference.
reflection, it's okay to be more opinionated, but
For reference, that's our same approach with compiler APIs. It's like, so you can do this.
that's the way it is. All right, then this looks right, I guess, considering that. Still don't know what the race method is, but even though some VBism apparently.
I think raise is just the invoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fire.
when you want to raise the method, when you want to raise the event to the subscribers.
Which C# currently only allows the
Yeah, Moncat as well.
declarer of the class to do.
So then, right, we went, I think, almost through the whole thing. Is anybody at the door?
No, that I can see. Does the console say there's another meeting next?
See, that would be useful, right? How would you get
I
it?
can look here.
Go about hanging out.
And so for get other methods, this is another case where we return empty array if there are no others, which is the general case.
So what did you say?
The other methods will return the empty array.
Because that's the normal.
The room is free all day.
All right, should we just keep going through a reduction at least and finish that one? Yeah, so other is basically never being done unless we have a custom language. None of our languages emit this. And I would believe it returns an empty array because that's what we do everywhere else. We generally don't return now. Is this a struct?
The runtime event info. Hey Steve, if you care, I found a new zero length array.
Where?
Runtime event info. If it has no other methods, it returns a new method info of 0.
Sounds like your next PR.
Kidding? I don't ever get to write code anymore.
Are you a PM now?
Apparently.
Hope we were.
Yeah, it could be a PM that talks to customers.
What is get? I'll get rid of this.
Get value null is static, turns null if the value.
Set value object value.
The object is the target, which is null if it's static. Value is the value, which is null if you want it to be null.
Somebody here scroll while I'm getting my charger.
And binder and culture and forward, who the hell knows?
Magic. They're magic.
Yeah, so I checked.
But the first set value doesn't accept null for a value,
That seems weird.
and the second one does.
I thought Emo wanted someone else to be in charge of scrolling, but I can't figure out where his cursor is.
I think he's just scrolling with the
Oh, there it is.
down key.
Yeah, so
Yeah, because apparently his thing doesn't handle using the touchpad to scroll.
yeah, something about hide API he was saying. So what class is that?
This one is field info.
Field info. That's it.
Field info set value.
Yeah.
The easy one.
Yeah, because it literally just forwards to the second one.
Okay, so then it should accept null.
Yes, that looks to be the case.
See, obviously I'm a PM. I took notes.
Good.
You didn't forget your charger.
And I didn't forget my charger.
Did you sprint all the way across the building?
Yes. The fact that I have a 38-minute battery is a good reinforcer to remove my charger.
Also, you just passed the test of being a PM.
Would have been funnier though if I had remembered my Mac charger today and I could have just given it to you.
Would have been double funnier if you had it and just now remembered.
But it's at home, sadly. Yeah, so set value, the first one just calls the second one, so it should be nullable as well.
Yeah. So you should make sure that my notes make sense to.
Yeah, I mean, they're the same quality of nodes that I have.
Okay.
Which is to say,
That we're gonna need to do this all over again?
You do Control A.
for interface mapping, we're saying those aren't nullable because we don't plan on them ever being null.
Because we never produce them, and we're the only producer for this struct.
They default.
Even though they're public fields.
Yeah. I mean, generally in struct, you can never prohibit anything being null.
Right. Except for, like, functional state. But
You mean
like you could have properties that always ensure that if it's null, it becomes
Sure.
a default value.
there works when you have singletons, right? For like the array ones, we probably could, right? But for the type ones, what would you return, right? It'd be a bit funky to return
Object.
some random type.
Public fields are also just weird, so.
Did I mention reflection is weird?
Next version, we deleted the reflection.
And again, so just to confirm, our position is, even though it's a struct and you could say default, the fact that we never produce one that looks like we're asserting it's not null.
Yeah, I think Steven said it earlier, right? Like the idea is that what's the common case, right? Like you can in principle never forbid somebody to do default with structs. So that would mean we have to mark any reference type on any struct always nullable, which wouldn't be very useful.
If it's a field.
Well, or if it's something like the type example where there is just no good default value, right?
Right, well, but like Tanner's point, once it's a property, we take the behavior of it. Public, if it's a public field, no.
Well,
Like it really is.
I mean, a field, yes, but I'm saying like even if it's a property, right? Very often there is no canonical value you can return. Like for arrays, it's simple to have a singlet. You can just say if this is null, return the singlet empty. But what you do for type, like what type would you return?
We
Like,
expose a new type.null, which which is a special type.
You return system.void.instance.
So we're adding system.nullables, and then we bunch of like instances for a random type, so that we can avoid the that seems wrong. Right?
Should args, the args parameter in invoke member on the iReflect interface, should that be object nullable?
Yes, it probably needs to be question mark.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like we just had that case elsewhere. It's probably
Yeah.
similar.
Let me search for args.
Yeah, you're not going to find any args anywhere.
iReflect.
Say, unique parameter.
Right, so we missed it on type. Type has
Invoke member.
effectively the only implementation of iReflect. So it has an invoke member which takes I think the syntax on the right is the array can be null.
Yep.
The values can't.
Yep.
But
Correct.
method info invoke says that also the arguments can. They could be.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
but it could be, for reflection, you pretty much have to assume that everything can be null and input and output.
What about parameter modifiers?
I
Or
think
is
they're
parameter
always,
modifier an struct?
It's in out and left.
Can named parameters ever be? Oh, you ever pass null
Like,
strings?
could you pass a null named param in the array, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think so. What does it even mean when you pass this guy? Is this the mapping for which ones where pass is named? Because if that's the mapping, then I would agree that.
I'm also curious about the types array above. Sort of, is that like the only part of reflection that doesn't allow you to pass null for default?
No, I think types is almost never nullable. Basically, if you want to call the constructor or the whatever member it is with no arguments, you have to pass an empty array.
Presumably the one on the line above it just forwards to this one passing.
No, I think it actually passes the one with empty.
So at least for the the runtime type implementation, it throws if it contains any nulls.
It being which one, Stephen?
Sorry, the named arguments.
Okay.
Named parameters.
So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one never loads now. Like, I mean, all of the reflection APIs I've seen, types was always non-nullable. You had to pass in an empty one.
So named parameters is an array containing the names of the parameters to which the value in arg's array are passed.
So that means if you want to pass one as named, you have to pass all as named?
types does have.
Collection doesn't support in-order names like C# does.
See, it throws about 200 exceptions, so give me a second to go through this.
Well, once it takes that many parameters, it has to.
See, it throws if no member could be found that has an argument name supplied and named parameters.
Oh. I mean,
If
these
the
are
length of
reasonable
args is
APIs.
greater than the length of named parameters, the remaining argument values are passed in order. Named parameters array can be used to change the order of arguments in an input array. The input array can pass unchanged args if
I mean, what's
it doesn't say anything about it throwing if anything and it's null or anything.
what's weird is the short overload of this does pass null. It just passes null to the private. That doesn't check that you didn't give it null.
Yeah, the reflection chaining is
Yeah, because that one doesn't chain it.
it chains to the internal worker method.
Yeah, two entry points into the internal when they disagree on their validity states.
Great. What did you bring us?
Pistachios?
Oh, for all of us?
Sure.
That would not be. That would end very quickly. Your supply of.
But on invoke member, it is probably the case that args should be a nullable array of nullable objects.
I mean, args.
Yes.
Yeah, args we already said that should be nullable, right?
And then the same is true for the implementation of this on type.
Which I think you already brought down somewhere because that looks
I
familiar.
feel like we talked about it. Yeah.
All right. Member info.
If it has a file name that we promise is never null.
Manifest resource info.
And in some way, resource locations are also never know.
I mean, you pass them in, so clearly they don't know, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's just a 3-field no validation. Now we're back to intent.
Well, what you get in is what you get out. Warn you if you put it in.
Warn you if you put it in. But we don't if we put it in.
Yes.
But that makes one of you a very naughty person.
Quality feature.
Ouch!
There's a 0 in the register. It's gonna crash.
Excuse me, what's a register?
We have stacks,
It's a thing Tanner keeps talking.
What am I
Apparently they're really
talking
cool.
registers.
The declaring type we talked about, reflected type, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Name will be
Again, this is the, for member info, this is the global methods can exist.
member info. I assume could be the empty string, but can never be null. Although actually, I guess I don't know what we export for indexer member info.
Which one are we looking at?
Member info.
The member info name?
Yeah, I assume it will just be the empty string.
Well, an indexer's name is item.
Is it? Okay.
That's the default usually.
Yeah, that's what C# takes in other languages. Whatever property you reckon.
Well, technically, C# names it based on the attribute you put on the type, and if you omit that attribute, then it names it in the item. That's what the indexer on string is called, chars. I didn't know that. Yes, you can name the indexer. Indexer name attribute where it's going. But don't do it. Why would you care?
It really matters for
Probably. Get custom attributes data. It all looks sensible, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Method base, here we go. The get current method can return now. How is that possible?
It's weird.
I've got to step out.
Enjoy.
It's just calling to internal get current method, which does an explicit check for null and returns null. I have not delved into the runtime implementation to see why it's doing that check and whether it's erroneous, but it's like very explicit in the code.
Well, because it may not find the current method matching the kind of stack call it wants, but the one that says go find my collar, I don't know that we have a world that you could have called this code from outside a method. Like, I don't think you can make this method be the entry point of an application, because that would be a cross-assembly reference. So,
We're talking about get current method.
yeah.
It returns null if you get a dynamic method, then you try to get the resolver for that dynamic method. The resolver is null.
So if you do like an expression tree build to get a thing, and it's like you're off in the weeds, man, I don't know who you are. Okay.
It is a case of the 99% case losing out, but
1% case not opening a dot button.
Well, to be fair, I think get current method is one of those problematic ones, right, where you basically rely on stack walking. So when you have inlining, you get kind of weird behavior. So
Method from handle, on the other hand, seems
yeah, if you can't find the handle, then it's reasonable to return now. Then invoke seems reasonable, surprisingly enough. Yep, get IL by the way makes sense to return now.
Oh, again, that's the method handle, or dynamic method.
Actually, on second thought, does it make sense to return null there?
For where?
Get IL by the way.
Well, if the method, well, if the
No.
method returns.
Sure, but then why would you want to return an empty array? Seems like a
So the virtual implementation, that returns null.
Runtime method body says
if it's extern. Like if you have no body.
like runtime, the class runtime method body. Get IL as byte array is return null back.
Well, why would we bang it?
Its override doesn't have a question mark.
That seems even more fucked up then. Okay.
Or rather, it has a field called IL, which it assigns to nullbang. It has no way of updating said field. I guess it's the runtime. Wants to. And then the method returns that field.
Okay.
But the virtual one just returns null. And the override doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, it's one of those more advanced APIs where returning null is probably fine.
Oh, yes, and you've got the easy case that the virtual system says
null,
return null. So,
And it is not nullbang. It's null.
well, because presumably there would be a difference between null and no IL, because a void method, no arguments, could have literally no IL.
Legally, you have to have a ret
It
state.
was to have red?
Yeah. It will not pass P verify.
Okay.
Nothing passes speed verify.
That is also a problem. But
Okay. All right, then.
No C# code involving switch statements or switch expressions. Verify.
really?
I don't think so. At least I thought it didn't.
But these are bugs in P verify probably. Right?
Parameter.
Verify is updated for. Oh, return parameters? Those are fun. VB. So old VB, the name of the method was an invisible, like an implicit parameter inside the body. So you could just say assign whatever you want to return to the name of the method, and then just say return. And it would return whatever was stored in that variable.
But why the fuck is that represented in metadata?
That I can't answer.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a secret parameter. I thought it was.
I thought that's just a
VB
local
language.
that GB generates and then it just has a centralized return.
Why is it a parameter?
Can't answer this question.
But you knew what it was. I'm just confused as to how a method doesn't have a return type.
If it's void, well, that would still be void.
That would
void.
hopefully
That
be
would be
type of
system
void,
void.
right?
Would be system void. That's a good question.
Yeah, that seems bogus. And then make generic method just runs null if it's not the generic method.
Yeah.
That should probably throw around, but
Or if you, yeah, I don't know.
man, some of the API, reflection APIs are gorgeous.
Next version of the framework. Throw out reflection.
We tried that 2 versions ago.
Do it again.
Yeah, get generic method definitions goes to the same path of method-based. Method-based get method, get current method.
Interesting that get generic arguments doesn't return, well, it will return the empty array. Okay, never mind.
Okay, so the return type is null because there's this massive waterfall of null propagation. Looks like if you call type builder.define pinvoke method, it goes a really long time without noticing that you said null is the return. In fact, it will return you the method info unbound, I think, and then you get to do with that what you will. I don't know that it's sensible, so I don't know that we would want to say that it can be null, but I think that's where it came from.
So which one are you talking about, the generic one or the
Return type.
Method info.return type. Unless the docs describe methods that don't have a return type. I don't.
That seems like we should probably lie. Like that, like, really?
How many people are reflecting over their pinvoke methods that they're creating?
with type builder.define pinvoke thingy. That probably doesn't even have any public callers.
I think we should mark this not null. But that seems just dumb. missing. Okay, find types. So what does this mean? This type info? No, this is module. Field info.
Oh, like globals.
Under type. Ignore case. One error, ignore case. Okay, we did the right thing. Operate on module.
Yeah, assuming that if it has no methods, it returns the empty array from get methods.
Obfuscation. Why do we actually have this as an attribute?
It obfuscates this meaning. Instructs obfuscation tools to take the specified action for assembly type.
And why we needed to build that into the language as opposed to just letting obfuscation tools provide their own attribute.
Did we write obfuscator?
Oh, that's preemptive.
We did not write that.
No, maybe we ship it with VS, I think, still. Like there's a community version or whatever, or at least there was one for a long time.
Well, because you know, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I worked in, we obfuscated everything, and then we decided we hated the fact that we stopped doing that.
Yeah. Pretty much our advice. Old value info. I don't even know what this does. Name info.
I don't know what that one is.
And in field, so it does whatever it wants.
And you have a parameter of name?
I believe that's legal in IO, yeah.
How did you talk about it?
No.
No, I guess.
I mean, you can always refer to the ordinary, say like the second argument, the third argument, the fourth argument.
What type is are we looking at right now?
Parameter info.
Even in the comments, it's name may be no.
I think this came up in some discussion we had that legal and IO don't have no argument, no parameter.
What? Apparently, nothing ever reads or writes default value info on parameter info. Guess that'd be why it's nullable. It's always null.
So what is always now? The default value?
The default value impl, which was at the very top of this.
This is the protected field.
Oh, these
It's a
guys.
protected field that source.net sees 0 things writing and 0 things reading. It's just, it is.
The fuck? You have a pointer class? Okay then.
Sure.
The classes that derive from parameter value
We probably used at one point.
could be.
Hold on.
The same thing as event, right? That method is optional, get method is optional.
Get constant value doesn't return a nullable.
Framework doesn't
You
read
see
or write
this?
it either. Comment that says don't catch
Get
this.
right above get method. Well, that one too. But I meant get that. Yeah, that one.
Maybe they about
No, it doesn't return a
Since it was
nullable because what it
protected,
returns
they
is typed up.
didn't want to introduce a breaking chain.
Okay.
And region legacy protected.
No, in fact, I think it, no, sorry, I think corrected. I think it returns db null. Like there was some placeholder value, and I believe it was db null.
Which
Which
one?
VL is.
Get constant value and get raw constant value.
What type is this?
Property info.
Yeah. Which makes sense, right? Because you need to differentiate the default value being null, right? So you can't return null. But yeah, that's a good point. So it needs to be nullable because null is a valid default value.
Unless we have
Well-
a sentinel for null as well.
No, that sentinel value. Oh no, I don't think so. Like that sentinel value is basically for you don't have a default.
So get constant value calls some helper method, and if it's db null value, it throws.
Yeah, it says it's not a literal out of the
Yeah.
here. Yeah, it's throw new invalid operation exception. Our enum lit value not found if it sees db null value.
Yeah,
But wait,
so
but
DB
so
null value is the placeholder for you don't have a default. So that means basically you can only call this method if you checked up front that this thing has a default.
Well,
right?
this is
It
both.
could still be null, right? Because it's object question. It's getting an object question, and it's just comparing it against one particular value.
So it should
It
it should
depends
be
on
marked
what
null.
the equals of
That
db null
is
does.
correct.
Right?
Okay, yeah, I guess it does depend on what
Because
the
you
equals
could
of
do,
DB null
if it
does.
does equals null, return true, then
Yeah, it cannot be DB null.
That's in half equals.
Okay,
No.
the field type is enum, and we don't want raw. And as one said.
yeah, that seems wrong. Get constant value should.
Same with get raw constant value.
You could have a null constant value.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So if you ask
Sorry,
for
what is the
constant
definition
value-
of constant value here on a property? I missed that part.
It's basically, I think in IL, like you can do the same thing that you can do on parameters. You can say there's a default value attached to that. So it should be more or less the same on parameter info.
So this method will return null if the type is a class that is not string. If it's string, null gets turned into empty. And the only thing that raw matters or not.
And that's only if you defined it in IL. You can't define this in C#, right?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, but we're looking at reflection.
Yeah, sure. I was just questioning.
No idea whether you can do it in VB or.
Get value took a nullable array of nullable objects, but set value took a nullable array of non-nullable.
Yep.
Yeah, all of these, we basically need to search for object, open brace, open bracket, close bracket, and check whether they should be nullable in reflection.
So which ones are you looking at? This one here, set value?
The two sets
Yeah,
have have one question mark, and the two gets have two question marks in the array.
Yeah.
although it might be, I have to look and see, it might be in these cases that the get is actually wrong. If this is on a property, right? If this is about the indexer, no, I guess this could be null too.
Yeah, it's the arguments to the indexer, right? And that
Yeah.
can be null like anything else.
I mean, whether it
shouldn't
gets
be.
wrong or sets wrong, I
Actually-
don't agree.
Actually, in set value, in runtime property info, we get null ref if an index is null. We just check if the array is not null, then we just try and create a new array of object that its length is equal to index.length.
Yeah, but so if
Okay,
index is not null. They're not
No,
null right
But
there.
then any of the
Oh, sorry, yeah.
what we're questioning is can the
Sorry.
contents of that
My
array
bad.
be null?
No, my bad. We indeed do accept nulls. Yeah, I read it wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, that makes more sense now. Sanity restored. Should take now.
Yep.
Index.
Too much.
2.5 hours of
today.
meetings will do this anyway.
It's only 2 hours, guys. Don't.
2.5.
I'm counting.
Been here since 1.
I was only 4 minutes late. Come on.
You've been there since what? I've been here since 4. So,
Steve's been here since the future.
That's a good point. It's getting really late for you.
Yeah, I gotta go shortly.
Yeah. I think this looks fine. Reflection type of exceptions can be now. I like it.
Hate it, but I will accept it. Can you just go back up a bit? Sorry.
I want to go faster, but you guys go a little slower, so it's not on me.
No. Okay, never mind. I'm good.
Well, do you want us to review things or sign off on things?
Yes.
It's honest.
No, extensions. Good.
Yeah, this type is irrelevant anyway. This is all some bullshit that we already replaced again.
Wrong name key apparently. All this.
It's not any enum.
Hey, can we talk about the naming of this enum for a second? I feel like that would add value to the conversation. These are all overrides, so I will ignore them.
I already looked at the.
Put their info.
You already have nodes for type filter, right? Where the object should be nullable. Filter.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
we did talk about that.
Yeah, plus.
Okay. Type filter. Would take.
Isn't it?
That's fine. Thank you. That's fine. In a bit.
Isn't it?
Both.
Oh shit.
Pretty sure.
I'm sure I'm saying it awfully. I said I'm sure I'm pronouncing it horribly.
No, it's actually good enough for me to make sense of it. The
That
biggest
doesn't
problem is
mean
when
good.
no, the biggest problem is when Jeremy talks to me in German and I have no idea what he's saying because I try to read it in English, and then I have to reparse it in German, and then it makes sense to me. But that's a problem when you expect somebody else to speak a different language. Like your brain does not switch that quickly. Same with my girlfriend, which is really weird.
Hey, we're in System.Runtime. We got done. We got done. System.
Oh God, we can stop now. Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
I would have by accident scrolled over that. All right, so where are we now? Let me actually look at this achievement here. Runtime. So we only have. We're here now.
Oh God, System.Runtime extensions. I didn't know before.
Well, this is
And
basically.
this is just these two is just half of Corley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, these two are like more than half.
Well, these
They were like
these are like 60%.
Yeah.
Right?
Like if we're done with this, we're done with most
I
of
think
it.
here we have like 10,000 APIs, and then Corley has like 18,000.
Yeah, it's like combined, like what, close to 8,500. Oh, plus edit, right?
Annotating Roslyn after doing this is.
No, but you have really smart people, right? They
Oh,
wouldn't
that's
make
so
mistakes.
cute.
Of course.
And you guys wrote the feature.
That's actually more important. We know what we meant.
Yeah, maybe I should have started with Rosalind.
Yeah, it's like for us it was really painful because it was like, what did you guys meant to do when you hit this issue? Especially with generics.
All right.
You say that, but I started with the native compiler, and sometimes it's like, well, you have no idea what we meant, and the source history only goes so far. All right, so then I think we are done for today.
Hey, I've traced bugs back to when C# was called.
Where the fuck would the source code even be?
Could you send me the notes that you have so far so that I will start working?
Yeah, how about I submit the PR with all of what we have right now, and I just update the PR from now on.
Okay.
All right, then I will hang up now, and Steven, you should go to bed probably. I don't know how late it is, but
I think it's dinner.
Not quite that late. Dinner time.
You got it, England.
all right, see you later.
See you guys.
See you, Mom. See you, Steve.
Oh, you don't want to see me? Oh,
No.
I understand how it is. I understand how it is.
See you, Mom.